My daughter told the realtor I was too old to live alone, while I was standing in the next room with the coffee pot in my hand. She didn't lower her voice. She didn't think she needed to. I heard every word. "He's slipping," she said. "He forgets things. It's really not safe for him here anymore." The realtor, a young woman in a blazer too crisp for a Tuesday morning, nodded the way people nod when they've already decided to agree with whoever's paying them. I set the coffee pot down so carefully it didn't make a sound, and I walked into my own living room and said good morning, like I hadn't heard a word. I signed nothing that day. Not the listing agreement Paige had printed and left on the counter, not the just to get an appraisal form the realtor slid toward me with the smile built for people who don't ask questions. I said I'd think about it. Then I picked up the phone and called a man named Arthur Bell, who has been my lawyer since 1991, and I said one sentence to him: "They're moving faster than I thought they would." My name is Walter Hensley. I am 71 years old. I spent 38 years restoring homes across the Shenandoah Valley, starting with a farmhouse outside Staunton that nobody else wanted, and ending with a business that employed 19 people and a reputation good enough that folks waited a year for a slot on my calendar. My wife Eleanor kept the books, kept the clients happy, and kept me honest for 44 years until the cancer took her 2 winters ago. After that, the house got quiet in a way I still haven't gotten used to. And my son Grant and my daughter Paige decided quiet meant helpless. Grant moved back into town 8 months after the funeral, technically to check on Dad, practically to check on the property values on our street. He's 41, works in commercial insurance, and has never in his life turned down a number that was bigger than the one before it. Paige lives 40 minutes away with her husband and drives over on Sundays with a casserole and a clipboard's worth of concerns about my memory, my balance, my medications, none of which I have trouble with, all of which she brings up at dinner like she's reading off a checklist somebody handed her. The conversation started small. Was I still driving at night? Did I really need 3 bedrooms? Wouldn't it be easier at my age to be somewhere with people around? I answered every question honestly, and every answer was somehow the wrong one. 6 months in, Paige stopped asking whether I wanted to downsize and started talking about it like it had already been decided in a meeting I wasn't invited to. The brochures came first. Cedar Grove Senior Residences, glossy and left on my kitchen table like they'd wandered in on their own. Then came the appraiser Brant happened to know, who just wanted to take a look around one Saturday while I was at the hardware store. Then the realtor. And through it all, nobody once sat me down and asked me what I wanted, because the plan didn't require my agreement, only my signature, and they were confident one would eventually produce the other. If you're enjoying this story, remember, there are more twists waiting for you after this one. None of them knew what none of them thought to ask was what their mother had done in the 11 months between her diagnosis and the day she died. There was a version of that Tuesday morning never told Paige about, and I still haven't. After the realtor left, I drove out to the cemetery on Route 11 where Eleanor is buried, something I do more often than I mention to anyone. I sat on the bench near her stone for the better part of an hour, and I remember thinking, almost bitterly, that she would have known exactly what to say to both of our children in that kitchen, and I hadn't managed to say anything at all. I didn't know yet that she'd already said it 4 months before she died, in a room I'd never sat in. Eleanor was not a sentimental woman when it came to paperwork. She was the one who insisted we had a will drafted the year Grant was born, the one who reviewed every insurance policy line by line, the one who once caught a contractor trying to shortchange us on a closing statement by $40 and made him redo the whole thing. When the doctors told her what the timeline looked like, she didn't spend her remaining months making peace with dying. She spent them making arrangements, quietly, in Arthur Bell's office, while I sat in the waiting room thinking she was just going over the will again. She wasn't going over the will. She was building something else entirely. 3 days after the realtor left my kitchen with an unsigned listing agreement, Arthur called Grant and Paige and asked them to come to his office. He told them it concerned the house. They came in together, Paige carrying a folder of her own, clearly ready to explain, in the gentlest possible language, why this was the responsible thing to do for their father. Arthur let them sit down. He let Paige start talking about my safety and my memory and how much easier everyone's life would be. He let her finish. Then he said one sentence, and according to Arthur, both of them went completely silent for close to a full minute. He said, "Your mother deeded this house into an irrevocable trust in March, 4 months before she passed, and the trust names your father as sole beneficiary for the remainder of his natural life, which means neither of you has had any legal claim to this property in over 2 years, and any sale conducted without a court-ordered guardianship would have been void from the moment it was signed." Paige, Arthur told me later, actually laughed, the short, disbelieving kind of laugh people make when they're trying to find the part of the sentence that isn't true. There wasn't one. Eleanor hadn't just protected the house, she had built in a clause, at her own insistence over Arthur's gentle objection that it might never be needed, if either child pursued a forced sale, a guardianship petition, or any legal action to remove me from the property against my wishes, their remainder interest in the trust, the part that would eventually have come to them, would be redirected in full to the Shenandoah Valley Veterans Housing Fund. Not reduced, redirected, entirely. She had written her own children out of the ending, contingent only on how they treated me once she was gone. Grant asked Arthur if there was any way around it, any loophole, any argument. Arthur told him the document had been drafted with him specifically in mind, because Eleanor had said to him, almost word for word, "Grant will look for the door before he looks for the person." Arthur said he'd never forgotten that line, and he watched Grant's face when he repeated it to him in that office, and Grant didn't say anything after that. If you're enjoying this story, stay with it, then see what happens in the next one. The Realtor never got her signature. The appraiser's report went into a drawer. Cedar Grove Senior Residences stopped mailing brochures sometime around July, and I like to imagine somebody in Paige's house finally called them and asked them to stop. I found out about the trust the same day my children did. Arthur called me that evening and told me everything, including the part about the Veterans Fund, including the line about looking for the door. I sat in my kitchen with the phone in my hand for a long time after we hung up. Eleanor never mentioned any of it to me. Not once. Not in 11 months of appointments I thought were about something else entirely. I think she knew that if she told me, I would have tried to talk her out of the harshest parts of it, out of loyalty to children I still loved even when I could see exactly what they were becoming. She built the protection anyway, and she built it strong enough that my love for them couldn't talk her out of it either. Grant and Paige have not tried to sell the house since. Grant calls now and then, shorter conversations than we used to have, careful ones. Paige still comes on Sundays, though the clipboard has disappeared, and for a while she couldn't look at me for more than a few seconds at a time. I don't bring up the trust. Neither do they. There's a version of this where I feel triumphant about it, and there's a version where I just feel tired. And most days I land somewhere between the two. I still walk the property every morning, same as I have for 30 years, checking the gutters, the porch boards, the things a house needs a person to notice. The bedroom Eleanor and I shared still has her reading glasses on the nightstand. I haven't moved them. I'm not in any hurry to. I sent one more email in August, a form letter about market conditions, probably auto-generated, probably not even aimed at me specifically. I deleted it without reading past the subject line. Arthur still checks in every few months, less about the trust now and more out of habit, the way old friends do. He told me once that in 30 years of estate work, he'd drafted plenty of documents meant to protect a person's money. Eleanor's was the first one he'd drafted that was really meant to protect a person's dignity, and the money was just the tool she had on hand to do it with. What I've come to understand, slower than I would have liked, is that the people who love you and the people who are safe for you are not always the same two people, and sometimes the only one who sees that clearly enough to do something about it is the one who's already run out of time to say it to your face. Eleanor never got to tell me what she suspected our children might become. She just made sure that whatever they became, it wouldn't cost me the roof over my head. I think that's the last thing she ever built for me, and like everything else she built in 44 years, it held. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Walter's place?